Hey everyone, my name is Pojo, and today we're looking at the Avisaur Patriarch, the last spoiler card for Jekk's Bounty before the set releases this week. This is the card that was spoiled on the Clockroach podcast. I believe that this is the last one scheduled. I don't think there's going to be one for Wednesday, so this is the last one, and with any luck we'll see Jekk's Bounty tomorrow, although it certainly might be the day after that, or even the day after that. I think more likely it's going to be a Thursday or Wednesday release. But in any case, we've got Avisaur Patriarch out, and let's go ahead and look at the stats. So first off, reasonable cost, 4 cost, 2 yellow influence, and 2 blue influence, which means it's very, very deep into the Elysian setup. And that's totally fine because this card is very, very fond of dinosaurs, and all of the dinosaurs are in Elysian colors. Still, you're going to want to be in blue and yellow for this one, and so that's something that's really important to note. Okay, but you can get a little bit of a splash if you need to. There's one particular splash that I would suggest, which would be maybe if you want to do like a Felon splash, that would be interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. The stat line is a 2-4. 2-4 is a pretty sticky set of numbers for a 4-drop. It's not quite as sticky as a 3-5, but since this card also has flying, that's a really reasonable stat line for its cost. And what it does is it generates a unit that is fairly hard to kill. And keep in mind, this is a hybrid unit, so it is a card that is immune to Vanquish, a card that is immune to Torch, and a card that is immune to Annihilate. 3 very efficient removal spells that are very common in most decks that run hard removal. So that's something that we really want to pay attention to, because that sort of stickiness actually really lends itself to Patriarch's overall game plan, and that's something that we really want to take into account when we're considering the text on the card, because this is a card that is actually pretty hard to make go away. As a 2-4, it doesn't generate a lot of tempo or pressure, but that's also something that the card itself can fix. So that's worth considering as we go into the rest of the stats. We have the flying ability, of course. This card is played in Elysian, so it's probably going to be competing with the 4 slot with Sandstorm Titan. The flying doesn't matter as much, but that's totally fine. You could also run this with Champion of Wisdom, since you're going to be very, very deep into Elysian colors, and that might give you a reason not to run Sandstorm Titan if you have 2 4-drops already that are pretty good with a dinosaur-focused strategy. All right, the central abilities. Your dinosaurs cost 1 less. That one's actually pretty important. Let's talk about all of the basic dinosaurs. We have the full list up here. Hunting Teriax is a solid card for work with Avisaur Patriarch. Making Hunting Teriax cheaper is pretty reasonable. This card has Flying and Ambush. It's a really solid mid-range card that I think gets passed up in most Elysian mid-range decks, and that Ambush ability can be very, very strong. It's a good anti-armory archetype. It's a good just way to push a lot of damage, and if you can give it some bonus stats, which is something else that Patriarch can do, it becomes immune to Torch, which is its primary weakness. I think that Teriax is a really solid choice in this deck, and probably one of the better dinosaurs. Some other dinosaurs worth breaking down: Nesting Avisaur, of course, making Avisaurs cheaper, doing Echo Avisaur shenanigans or Crown of Possibility shenanigans can be really interesting. And if you can make those cards continually cheaper, then that's pretty decent. Nesting Avisaur is not a big deal with Avisaur Patriarch, but it's worth considering. Teriax Hatchling is probably the premier card to be using this type of buff on. As a 2-1 flying echo, reducing it to 2 cost makes it very, very efficient, and this is a card that, because of that echo ability, you're going to be able to create a ton of Teriax Hatchlings with cards like Twinning Ritual, with cards like Second Sight and Excavate. So a very simple dino deck that might exist with the advent of Teriax Patriarch Avisaur Patriarch is the Teriax Hatchling, just throw a bunch of Teriaxes out deck. Very similar to a Clockroach archetype, except you have a bunch of flyers, and they already have Echo, so they get a lot of extra bonuses from the Crown of Possibilities. So lots of interesting things you can do with Teriax Hatchling, and I actually think that Teriax Hatchling is undersold as a Crown of Possibilities card at this point. But yeah, it's really, really good, decent way to basically just spam dinosaurs. You can make Scourge of Frostholm 1 cheaper, and Scourge of Frostholm is actually a pretty relevant dinosaur at 9. The earlier you can play this card just locks control decks out of the game, and big control decks are a deck that's going to create a lot of problems for a mid-range style deck. So if you have Scourge of Frostholm at the top and the Scourge is also cheaper, that's really an interesting deal that's going to be pretty relevant to your interests. We don't really care about Arachnodon or Scaly Gruin or Towering Terrazon or Horned Vorlunk, all of which are cards that don't really see a lot of play in the competitive archetype. Horned Vorlunk is probably the most interesting of the 4 that we don't see competitive play with right now, because its 3/4 Overwhelm is a pretty sticky stat line, and giving it a slight health bonus along with that Overwhelm is fairly relevant. You could actually do something with this. Once again, it's like a unit that's immune to Vanquish, and sometimes, very rarely, if you're seeing a very heavy Vanquish meta, you might run this instead of Sandstorm Titan. I don't really recommend it, but it's something to consider, and giving it bonuses maybe could be a pretty good deal for you with Vorlunk. But overall, not like a major dinosaur discount. Twin Brood Sauropod is the other really excellent target for Avisaur Patriarch's ability, because having a 4-cost 5/4 with Echo is very, very stat efficient, and also means that you have a lot of card advantage in addition to your just overall meat on the board. Ancient Terrazon, a card that hasn't seen much play in Elysian midrange yet, but I think that could be very, very good as a 6-cost 8/8, and also just is very, very good in general. If you can design, say, a Combre Elysian deck that protects the Ancient Terrazon a lot, that card will stymie a lot of different game plans and make a fairly difficult time for your opponent. And then finally, maybe the best target for Avisaur Patriarch, a 4-drop into a 5-drop Predatory Carnosaur. Predatory Carnosaur is one of the best swings that a mono time deck or a straight Elysian deck can generate, and oftentimes it sees only like a 2 or 3 of in those types of decks on account of the fact that its prohibitive cost makes it pretty hard to cast. You want to do more things at 5 and 4 with the mid-range deck, and so Carnosaur sometimes gets left by the wayside, even though it is a card that swings games and really just secures games for you. So having a Predatory Carnosaur as a 5-cost 6/6, really, really relevant. Okay, so that's the full list of dinosaurs that we can play with, and so that's definitely, good stuff, good stuff. The one thing left to talk about is that ultimate. Pay 6 to give your dinosaurs +2/+2. Now, this is a one-use ability, of course, but it is renewed by cards like Safe Return, Teleport, Dark Return, basically anything where the unit dies or is returned to hand and then comes back down, you can again give that buff down. And the second thing that's really important to note about this ultimate, aside from the fact that, of course, it makes many of your dinosaurs much scarier. The Teriax Hatchling plan is a lot scarier. The Twin Brood Sauropod plan is a lot scarier. But the thing that I really want you to note about this card is that pay 6 to give your dinosaurs +2/+2 does, in fact, give Avisaur Patriarch +2/+2. And turning a 4-cost card into a 4/6 flyer is actually a really relevant stat line that is beefy, hard to kill, and really, really pretty nasty. 4/6 is the stat line on 4th Tree Elder, which is a card that is just a significant nasty bomb in draft because it's just too big for anything to get past. A 4/6 card will basically just prevent flyers from ever getting at you again. It has to be dealt with once it has that buff. And it's got a pretty decent clock on it for a flyer as well. That's a really solid buff just for Patriarch. And so that's something worth considering. But of course, if you're also just flooding out with Echo Dinosaurs, then Avisaur Patriarch is going to be amazing for exactly that reason. All right, I think that's all I have to say about Patriarch at the moment. It is another one of those cards where, it's easy to sort of look at it and think, maybe this isn't that good. But I think that there's actually a lot of interesting and strong ideas that can be put into place. And I'm also really excited to see more dinosaurs with Avisaur Patriarch now that we have this dinosaur. Let's see some more in Jekk's Bounty. Let's see some more in the next upcoming set. And once that happens, Avisaur Patriarch will be an even more interesting card. But it could shake up the meta a little bit. I think overall it's definitely got some potential, and we're going to be really, really interested in seeing how this card progresses and what kind of decks use this card. I was thinking that it actually discounted Shimmerpack, but I think Shimmerpack is an illusion now. It's no longer a dinosaur. I feel like it used to be a dinosaur, but my mistake. Anyways, so that's pretty exciting stuff. We are going to go ahead and call this one. We will be streaming Jekk's Bounty either Wednesday or Thursday. If it's Wednesday, it'll be a late night stream because I have some plans for the evening, but I am going to be pretty excited. So you can come on over to my Twitch. I will hopefully have a subscriber button by then because I just made Twitch partner and I'm really excited about that. So like we'll announce when we officially are Twitch partner and like we have that sub button, and I would love if you would like come on over and watch. So yeah, anyways, feel free to like or subscribe if you like this video, and we will see you next time with the full card breakdown from Jekk's Bounty, if we don't insert a couple of Eternal Brews decks in between. So thanks again, and have a good night, guys. May your dinosaurs be ever larger and cheaper. Cheers.